The Raynox DCR250 is a simple clip-on lens that can turn any lens into a macro lens. And the good thing is that it is very cheap. In this video, I'm going to review the Raynox and explain why every macro photographer should have one. On this photo session, I'm going to be using two drastically different setups to showcase the kind of shots you can get with a Raynox. The Olympus setup is my main macro setup, and the other is a much cheaper setup with a non-macro lens. Starting off with the build quality. The build quality is great. The glass is very strong, so there's no need to worry about cracking it if you drop it. I've had this specific Raynox for about 6 years now, and I know I've dropped it so many times and it's still not broken and works great still. The compatible filter size for the Raynox is between 52 and 67 millimeters, so if your lens's thread size is in that range, the Raynox will fit no problem. But even if your lens of choice has a smaller or a bigger filter size than the 52 to 67 range, you can get some adapter rings which are also very cheap to make it fit on your lens. The magnification to expect really just depends on the lens you are using. The longer the focal length of your lens, the better the magnification you will have. If you are curious to finding your exact magnification, then there's a calculator website which will give you the exact magnification you will have. All you need to do is enter the focal length of your lens, the magnification, and the minimum focus distance of your lens. For my 300mm lens, I have a max of 3.25 and a minimum of almost 1x magnification, which is perfect range for macro photography. And for my 60mm macro lens, I have a max of almost 2x magnification. So if you don't have a macro lens, the lenses I would recommend would be a mid-range zoom lens, such as a 70 to 300 like I'm using in this video. A good thing about using a Raynox is that it doesn't affect the image quality. The sharpness to expect all depends on the lens you are using. If you already have a lens that produces sharp photos, then adding a Raynox won't affect the image quality. I highly recommend the Raynox if you are new to macro photography and if you are looking for a good budget option to start off with. Back when I got my first DSLR camera, this was the first piece of macro gear I bought, and I used it with my kit lenses. Most sites you find it on, the price will be around $72. It shouldn't be much more than that. I got mine off Amazon, and I'll have a link for it in the description. Even if you have experience in macro photography and you already own a macro lens, I still highly recommend it because most macro lenses will only go up to 1x magnification, and a lot of times for photographing those tiny subjects, 1x magnification isn't enough to fully capture all the details on them. I'll probably have my Raynox on for about a good 90% of my macro shots because most bugs I come across are very small, and having that extra magnification helps out a lot. Overall, having a Raynox is just a very cheap way to give yourself extra magnification if needed. The working distance with the Raynox also depends on the lens you are using. If you are using a macro lens, then your working distance will decrease, but in my opinion, I still think the working distance is good even with a Raynox added. If you are using a zoom lens, then remember that the longer the focal length, the longer the working distance you will have. The only downside about the Raynox is the depth of field is extra shallow. The depth of field in macro photography is already very shallow, and having a Raynox will make it even more shallow. And also, sometimes it can be hard to find the subjects in your viewfinder or on your camera screen when you get close because of the shallow depth of field. So if you've never used one before, it will probably take some time to get used to, but once you start to get the hang of it, it won't be much of a problem. Like I said earlier, I highly recommend the Raynox for any photographer, regardless of skill level. It is just an easy and cheap way to get into macro photography as a beginner, and an easy way to give yourself extra magnification if needed. Let me know down in the comments your experience with the Raynox if you own one or you've used one in the past. If you like this video, then make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.